News just in, Singapore is lifting border restrictions for travellers from mainland China and Australia's Victoria State.
Accepting them into Singapore is no different from asking Jurong residents to go to Bedok. It's just similar risk profile.
After a one-day suspension, TRACETOGETHER tokens are available again, but only at one community centre.
And they're all the craze right now. ST's food correspondent fills us in on where to find the best stuffed doughnuts.
Happy Thursday, you're watching The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Haryanto Diman.
And I'm Olivia Quay. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
Breaking news: from next Friday, November 6th, Singapore will lift its border restrictions for visitors from mainland China and Australia's Victoria State. The Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore announced that the countries displayed successful control over the spread of the virus and that risk of importation from these places is low.
From October 30th, visitors travelling from these two places can apply for an air travel pass for entry into Singapore on or after November the 6th. Among other measures, applicants must have remained in either country for 14 straight days prior to their entry and need to take a COVID-19 test upon arrival. If the result is negative, they'll be allowed to go about their activities here without serving a stay-home notice.
In an exclusive interview, Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung spoke to our news editor Karimjit Kaur about the latest announcements.
Plans have just been announced for Singapore to unilaterally open our borders to travellers from China and from the state of Victoria in Australia. Now, how significant is this move given that there are still travel restrictions for outbound travel from these places?
I think it's not surprising because their track record has been very good. Once the risk profile is roughly similar to Singapore or better, then it's no different. Accepting them into Singapore is no different from asking Jurong residents to go to Bedok. It's just similar risk profile. I don't expect numbers to be huge because there is still restriction on outbound travel, like you say. So for the 4 countries that we have unilaterally opened to, we have welcomed about 600. We used to receive that in an hour. Yeah, so it's been a month, 600, because there is still restrictions coming out. But I think it's meaningful to do this anyway. It's like chess pieces. We want to put them in place. At some point, aviation will start again. At some point, people will travel again. And this is a globalized world. It could be when the vaccine becomes widely available. It could be when people really got used to living with the virus and taking the right measures to contain it. At some point when it starts, our chess pieces are in place, we are connected, and then Changi will thrive again and SIA can fly again.
Right, Minister, apart from such unilateral moves, Singapore has one air travel bubble coming up with Hong Kong.
It's coming up.
Give us a date on when this might happen. There's a lot of interest in Singapore-Hong Kong travel.
Chief Executive Carrie Lam yesterday said it'll be in the month of November. I wouldn't want to contradict her. I agree with her assessment.
Can we expect a second or third air travel bubble by the end of the year?
My wish is, of course, the more the merrier. Because for us to unilaterally open or to establish a travel bubble, it must mean that someone else have controlled the virus to the same level as Singapore. And if more places in the world achieve that, the more we can open up.
Germany, we've had reports that they are going to be going into a lockdown next week. So again, there is some concern among Singaporeans, with regard to this decision to have a green lane with Germany. Are you looking to review that decision?
I think first, have an assessment of your partner. At what stage are they on the epidemic curve? And what are their measures and what is their risk profile? So what we have is a green lane, which really is to break down the population. So in the case of RGL, it's targeted at business travelers. So amongst that group, more likely their cases are lower, case rates are lower, and therefore we have a green lane open so that they can continue to travel. And when they are here, we take other precautions. So for example, our RGLs work by requiring them to take a PDT, pre-departure tests, a couple of days before they travel. When they arrive, you take a OAT, on-arrival test, and if they are negative there, negative here, then they go about their business through a controlled itinerary. You can't run around, hawker center, travel, take roller coaster, at Universal Studio. You can't do all that. You have to submit, you have to be sponsored by a local agency here, go through a controlled itinerary, and get business done. Yeah. So that way we really manage the risk. And in that few cases where pre-departure they are negative, post-arrival they are positive, then they are admitted and they are isolated. So by and large, risk is controlled in that way.
Well, that was Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung in an exclusive interview with the Straits Times.
He was speaking on today's announcement that Singapore is lifting border restrictions for visitors from mainland China and Australia's Victoria State. Now head over to straitstimes.com for the full story.
An update on the COVID-19 situation here. 7 new cases were confirmed today.
All of them are imported patients who had been placed on stay-home notices when they arrived in Singapore. Now more details will be released tonight.
In other local news, more people here may soon be able to get tested for COVID-19 and know their results in less than a minute simply by taking a breathalyzer test. Following a successful trial at the National Centre for Infectious Diseases, local developer Bethonix said it's currently in discussions with the Health Ministry to deploy its tests in trials at public locations in the coming months.
An incident involving a large ceiling fan injured 2 customers at a coffee shop in Tampines last night. The injured patrons are understood to be a young man and an elderly woman who were seated at the same table. They were taken to Changi General Hospital. The coffee shop's owner told the Straits Times that the fan had undergone yearly maintenance works earlier that day. And in the 10 years since the fan and another were installed in the coffee shop, there were no incidents with them.
Hougang residents can now look forward to a new heritage trail in the neighborhood. The National Heritage Board's latest self-guided trail will have 3 thematic routes to cater to varying interests. The first takes visitors along a 3.5-kilometer stretch of Upper Serangoon Road, highlighting 8 landmarks of Hougang, including religious sites and old businesses. Meanwhile, those keen to find out more about community groups like charitable halls and clan associations can take the Institutions of Service route, featuring 6 sites. Finally, those with a keen eye for building design features will enjoy the Architectural Gems route, which features 7 built heritage sites.
Meanwhile, the national distribution of TRACETOGETHER tokens resumed today in limited fashion only at Marsiling Community Club. It's the first collection venue to resume after distribution was suspended yesterday.
Well, the temporary suspension was to make way for a new mode of distribution where new collection venues will be opened 1 constituency at a time. There were reports of long queues at some community centres last weekend, with people having to wait for about 45 minutes.
The remaining 107 community centres in other constituencies will be progressively opened for token collection between this month and December.
Collection is not a one-day affair and will continue until the end of the year. Residents should also be collecting tokens from the CC of the constituency they live in. The schedule for collection is available on the Token Go Where website.
Joining us now to share more on the new distribution exercise is tech editor Irene Tham. Hi Irene, what were some of the problems in the initial rollout and what caused them?
Initially, TRACETOGETHER, or in short TT tokens, were distributed at 38 community centres. It has been ongoing for 6 weeks already, and the government said that it would cater to all walk-ins. So people have been slowly collecting, long queues had not descended on the community centres yet, until after last Tuesday's announcement by the COVID task force that checking in with the TT token or app for contact tracing will be mandatory at almost all venues by the end of this year as Singapore prepares to enter phase 3 of its reopening. The real problem is people do not know when they'll be produced, right? I mean, what is the timeline for a scheduled collection? And for children and grandparents who wants to catch a movie in November or December, for instance, this is the school holidays, they'll need a token. this could explain the mad rush. And and we also don't know, if there are any other enthusiastic venues besides cinemas, which may switch to the Trace Together check-in system way ahead of the end December cutoff date. So there are a lot of uncertain elements here, which is why people feel that they better get the token first and fast, right?
The target is to complete the distribution exercise by end of the year. Now, with the current situation and confusion, like you mentioned, Irene, do you think we will be able to meet this target, keeping in mind that the conditions to meet phase 3 depend on this?
Okay, I think supply may not be an issue. It's communications with the public and also when the scheduled rollout will take place across venues, right? Well, unless factories suddenly malfunction, and tokens are not available. So I don't think supply is the issue. It's communications. And another issue is the misaligned timelines of token distribution and the Trace Together check-in rollout at venues. It seems like the government has put the cart before the horse when it announced mandatory use of the system at venues, even before anyone and everyone who needs the token had the chance to collect their tokens. So I think there needs to be proper communication with the public on the timelines for Trace Together rollout at these venues where it's required.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Irene, for setting aside time to speak with us. We were speaking to tech editor Irene Tham on the resumption of the Trace Together token collection. Now, you can read more about this at straitstimes.com.
In global news, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel ordered their countries back into lockdown. These measures in response to a massive second wave of coronavirus infections that threaten to overwhelm Europe before winter. From tomorrow, those in France must stay at home except to buy essential goods, seek medical attention or exercise for up to 1 hour a day. They'll be permitted to go to work if their employer deems it impossible for them to do the job from home. Schools will stay open. Meanwhile, Germany will shut bars, restaurants and theatres from November 2nd to 30th. Schools will stay open as well, and shops will be allowed to operate with strict limits.
Over in Thailand, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has given the green light to amending the constitution. Charter amendment is one of 3 core demands made by pro-democracy protesters who have been storming the streets since mid-July. They have also demanded the resignation of Mr. Prayut and his government, as well as monarchical reforms. Mr. Prayut has insisted he will not resign, but said he had no objection to switching off the unelected Senate's power to vote for a Prime Minister.
Well, more on Thai politics. Germany doesn't believe the Thai king has breached its ban on conducting politics while staying there. Thai protesters had asked Germany to look into whether King Maha Vajiralongkorn had conducted state business while he was on German soil, like the signing of royal commands and the Annual Expenditure Act.
The top decision-making council of Malaysia's biggest ruling party, UMNO, is set to meet later today. This comes just days after it announced continued support for the Perikatan Nasional government. Sources in UMNO confirmed that they were informed of the meeting, which will be held at its headquarters at Kuala Lumpur's Putra World Trade Center at 8 p.m. They are, however, unsure of the meeting's agenda, but it's believed it has been called to discuss the possibility of the deputy prime ministership being given to UMNO.
Thursdays mean a check-in with our colleagues at Live for ideas on what to do over the weekend. News out yesterday that Zouk is rolling out its pop-up cinematic experience from tomorrow.
The main room will be transformed into a cinema from Wednesday to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. There'll be 1 screening session per night showing 2 movies. Now, in line with Halloween, The Sixth Sense and A Nightmare Before Christmas will be shown this week. After that, films in its opening month will be on the theme of For the Love of Music.
Well, journalist Anjali Raghuraman joins us to share more. Anjali, on Wednesdays, table packages are priced from $75. For bigger groups of 3 to 5 people, the experience costs at least $175. From Thursday to Saturday, these packages are, of course, more expensive. Despite the high costs, though, do you think people will still take it up?
Oh, for sure. I think it'll be really attractive because people are so desperate to get out at this point. They just want to be in a club setting, no matter how it looks now, whether it's in the form of a restaurant or whether it's a form of a cinema like Zouk is going.
Anjali, a two-part question for you. What
Yes.
do you make of Zouk's efforts to pivot to other businesses, restaurants, spin classes, and now a cinema? And by branching out to these areas, does Zouk risk diluting its nightlife brand?
Okay, typically in any other year, I would say yes, they are diluting the brand, but we are in unique circumstances. And if anything, they're being very smart about it. And they're an example that brands can be creative and adaptable, in given the current coronavirus situation. And I would also like to think that hopefully this sets a precedent for like a lot of the other venues to be able to do the same, because the fact of the matter is the nightlife scene is not just Zouk. There are a lot of other smaller players that are struggling. And with Minister Lawrence Wong saying that phase 3 is going to come, but nightlife businesses are not going to be a part of it, it's really quite taxing. And given that Zouk has successfully rolled out stuff like the restaurant, the spin classes, and now the cinema, hopefully they'll be able to use that advantageous position to help the other smaller guys lobby as well, despite the tough circumstances that everyone is facing right now.
Right, great points there, Anjali. Always great to hear from you. That was journalist Anjali Raghuraman on Zouk's latest offerings.
From one iconic landmark to another, we have talked about Zouk. So let's move on to Jewel Changi Airport. It's a place where you can spend at least half the day, also I've heard.
Olivia, I know you haven't actually walked
Yeah, that's
around
right.
Jewel before, so let's bring in travel editor Liu Xihua to give you and our viewers some ideas on what to do at Jewel. Hi, Xihua. Now, Xihua, there are the more popular spots there, like the indoor waterfall, Canopy Park, and the numerous retail and F&B outlets. But what are some hidden facets?
So Jewel is vast, right? And at some point you'll need to rest. There are these lovingly recycled wooden benches, recycled from old rain trees that used to sit on the former car park at Terminal 1, upon which Jewel was built. So I think that there are a nice, sustainable, old school touch in an ultra-modern airport.
Right, Xiuhua. So for the visitor who wants a luxurious experience, as well as for somebody looking for more affordable options, what do you recommend that they add to their itinerary, so to speak?
You could do a staycation. So I spent 48 hours at Jewel with back-to-back staycays at Yotel Air and Crown Plaza. And Yotel Air, for instance, the rooms are designed to look like first-class cabins. And there are robots coming by to serve you with towels or an extra bottle of water. And there's also a private lounge there where you can overlook a private corner of the gardens and the rain vortex. And should you want a laptop, the Apple store there would have you covered. And my favorite dining area is on the 5th floor, just right under the glass dome. So you can have a Japanese rice bowl or afternoon tea or cocktails with a local touch, and it's all very chill. You can also spend the whole day at Jewel. Olivia thinks half a day, but yeah, I can really stretch it too. And a lot of it is free. Jewel itself is open 24 hours a day, and you can clock in 10,000 steps just doing retail therapy, or in my case, I also popped by to Jurassic Mall nearby, which is free, and it's a good long walk there. Affordable treat was in the evening when I bought a ticket to the glass canopy bridge. The ticket price is usually $8, but with a Changi Rewards card, you get a discount. So you can stay as long as you want on the glass bridge, wait for the mist to swirl around, and especially in the evening, when the indoor forest is all lit up and you're eye to eye with the rain vortex, it's very magical. It's like being aloft, afloat, maybe the closest we can get to flying for a while.
Wow, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Xiu Hua. We've been speaking to travel editor at the Straits Times, Lee Siu-Hua.
You know, Haryanto, I just realized today that I've never had a stuffed donut before. Don't shake your head. I prefer the traditional ones, that's why. Well, apparently stuffed donuts are all the rage these days.
You are missing out on a lot, Olivia. Now, the Sunday Times shortlisted 10 chocolate and hazelnut stuffed donuts for a blind taste test.
And here to tell us more is food correspondent Eunice Kwek. Eunice, before we get into where we can find the best stuffed donut in Singapore, what makes a good stuffed donut in the first place? What were the judges looking for?
Okay, so the judges were looking for taste, texture, and appearance. Each donut was given 10 points for each category, and that's what they were looking for. They were looking for a good balance of filling to dough, in particular, a really good fluffy dough with a nice crumb, something that's not too dry, because if it's too dry, it sticks to, you know, the roof of your mouth, and then you can't finish the donut properly, and it's quite unpleasant.
So, 10 donut options. Which are the judges' favorites and why?
Okay, I can't reveal too much, right? So I'm just gonna tell you which 3 made it into our top 3. And they are Nassim Hill Bakery, the Fat Kid Bakery, and Dough and Batter. Now the other 2, the Fat Kid Bakery and Dough and Batter, are actually home-based businesses. So I'm really, really glad that they made it into our top 3. Nassim Hill is a bistro in Tanglin Road, and they have been doing donuts for quite a while already. And so what stood out for these 3 among the rest was that Fat Kid Bakery, they do these sourdough bombolinis. So they're like the Italian style stuffed donuts. And because the batter is made with sourdough, it has a bit of a, you know, a tangy flavor that kind of balances out with the chocolate. So you get kind of 2 different kinds of flavors playing with each other. The one at Nassim Hill is actually a brioche donut. So that's very tasty, very fluffy as well. And for Dough and Batter, what really stood out was the Nutella filling that one of our judges really, really, really liked.
All right.
Oh my God, I'm excited now to find out which one actually takes the top spot.
Yep.
Right? Well, thank you so much, Eunice. You've made us go nuts over donuts. That was food correspondent Eunice Kwek wrapping up live picks. Now you can read Eunice's full review in this weekend's Sunday Times. So, Olivia, which one of the 3 are you going to go for this weekend?
I probably will go for the donuts. I'm going to try one of the top 3 places that Eunice mentioned because, you know, I haven't had one before. So why not? Let's go and have, you know, finally break that.
Yeah, I think you should.
How about you?
I will probably go to Jewel. I love Jewel.
Oh, yeah. And you live nearby, yes.
And I live nearby Jewel as well. There's so much that you can do at Jewel. You can eat, you can just hang around, you can just walk around.
Okay.
So yeah, Jewel.
Okay, so if you're heading to Jewel as well, you may see Haryanto there this weekend. I hope you got some good ideas on what to do this weekend as well. Besides tuning into The Big Story, you can also catch every episode of Live Weekend Picks in a podcast. You just have to subscribe to The Straits Times on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.
Today's show is actually the 100th episode of the Live Podcasters. We have been sharing the best lifestyle and food picks in Singapore for the past 2 years. What a milestone indeed. So congratulations, guys.
Well, for more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Kwek, who has not eaten a donut, a stuffed donut before.
Hi.
Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.